The Georgia teenager accused of killing her mom and stepdad has a new lawyer, and he came out swinging at a hearing today, alleging there's a lot more to the story of Sarah Grace Patrick than authorities have released to the public.
Now there's new evidence that there's some rogue cop that now literally didn't write a report at the beginning.
With the teenager in the courtroom today, the defense unveiled what they say is newly discovered information. Information they say points to potential new suspects that it says could change the trajectory of this case.
A quiet Thursday morning in Carrollton, Georgia turned into a nightmare that's still unraveling more than a year later. And this week, a stunning new development just blew the case wide open. On February 20th, 2025, a 911 call went out from a home on Tyus Road describing what sounded like a medical emergency. A cardiac arrest, 2 adults unresponsive, cold to the touch. But when deputies from the Carroll County Sheriff's Office arrived, what they found wasn't a medical tragedy, it was a crime scene. Kristen Brock, 41, and her husband Jamie Brock, 45, were found shot to death in their own bed. There was no forced entry, nothing broken, nothing disturbed. Whoever did this either had a key, or they were already inside. The 911 call had come from the couple's teenage daughter, 16-year-old Sarah Grace Patrick, who told dispatchers her young sister was the one who actually discovered the bodies. Before that morning, by every account, Sarah was about as ordinary as a teenager gets. She'd graduated high school early, at just 16. She was active in her church's youth ministry, where she'd even been recognized for it. And she came from a blended family of 7 children who were, by all appearances, close-knit and deeply rooted in their Carroll County community. Nothing about her life on paper suggested any of this was coming. For months, investigators combed through evidence, interviewed the family, and said almost nothing to the public. And in that silence, Sarah kept living her life in full view of it, posting on TikTok about grief and...
Sarah Grace Patrick has been in jail for roughly 1 year. She was arrested and charged with the murders of her mom and stepdad in July of 2025. Today, Patrick was in the courtroom once again in Carrollton, Georgia, roughly an hour outside Atlanta. We did see her flash a smile as she talked to her new defense attorney, and that attorney's name is Sean Hoover. He replaces LaToya Williams. She's no longer with the Georgia Public Defender's Office and is no longer defending Sarah Grace Patrick. Now,
eventually standing up at her parents' joint memorial service to deliver a eulogy, she thanked a long list of family and friends by name, one by one, and then, almost as an afterthought,
I just wanted to say goodbye to my mom and Jamie since we never got the chance to.
Now, that's a speech that has been a point of debate for investigators and the Patrick family, those who have stood by Sarah Grace's side.
And never take a hug or anyone or anything for granted, and love with all that you have in you like they did. And lastly, my take on not taking people for granted. I want to thank my family, also known as my Cata fam, my grandparents, my siblings, for helping me get through my worst nightmare. And last but not least, I want to thank Tasha, Bree, Nate, Lane, Kimberly Hayes, Kim Bowling, Katie, and most of all, my father, Angie, and Ben for making such a big difference. Jamie and Mama would have thanked y'all too. I love you guys, and so do I.
Added one word that investigators would later flag as suspicious: sorry. It's the kind of moment that splits anyone watching it right down the middle. To some, it was a grieving teenager stumbling emotionally through words she'd said too many times already. To investigators, it read like something colder. Was it grief talking, or something else? That question hung over the case for months. Then, in July of 2025, with no warning to the public, Carroll County authorities called a news conference and dropped the news. Sarah Grace Patrick, the teenager who had just buried her mother and stepfather, was under arrest, charged as an adult with murder and aggravated assault in both of their deaths.
And she says, sorry. Investigators called that sorry a red flag. They believe that she was just acting. Now, there were no arrests in this case for months until last July when Carroll County authorities called a news conference.
Today, we can confirm that an arrest has been made in the case. Kristen Brock's 17-year-old daughter, Sarah Grace Patrick, has been taken into custody and charged with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault.
Law enforcement
Police said they had what they called a mountain of evidence. But here's the thing. More than a year later, almost none of that mountain has ever been shown to the public. No murder weapon confirmed. No crime scene photos released. No body cam footage. Just a claim, and a teenager now sitting in the Carroll County jail. Her own family is split in half over what to believe. Her biological father has said publicly, without hesitation, that his
Law
daughter...
enforcement said there was a, quote, mountain of evidence that proves Sarah Grace Patrick killed her mom and stepdad. But still to this day, we don't really know what that mountain is made of.
If they say they have a mountain of evidence, that folder was pretty thin.
That is Sarah Grace Patrick's biological dad. His name's DJ, and he spoke with us in one of his first interviews last July. He believes that his daughter is innocent, 100% innocent, he said. In fact, he was with her in the interrogation room right before a warrant was put out for her arrest. He then drove her to the sheriff's office to turn herself in, and they were told that Sarah Grace Patrick was going to be charged with the murders of the Brocks.
He was the one who drove her to turn herself in. Her maternal grandfather, Kristen Brock's own father, has echoed similar doubts, pointing to the 4-month gap between the murders and the arrest as proof, in his eyes, that investigators didn't have much to go on early. But on the other side of the family, James Brock's relatives feel very differently, describing a young woman the public doesn't really know behind the smiling social media posts. At one bond hearing.
Now, also on Sarah's side is her grandfather, a man named Dennis Nolan. He is Kristen Brock's dad. So he lost his daughter in this case.
I mean, let's face it, it took them 4 months to arrest her. You know, the time lag. If they had anything of substance that came about from the initial investigation, they would have arrested her immediately.
But it's important to note the family dynamic here. Not all family members are on Sarah's side. I spoke with Kristen Dowda. Her mom is James Brock's sister, so he was her uncle. And Kristen has gone public saying that her uncle felt very differently about Sarah Grace Patrick.
He said repeatedly that she's not the Sarah that you guys know. You don't see the real...
A family member took the stand and described the murders in gutting detail. Both victims shot multiple times, including in the head, while they lay in their own bed.
The real Sarah.
Now, here is Kristen's mom, Kimberly Bowling. She took the stand during a bond hearing last August.
The defendant is charged with the brutal murders of my brother, Jamie, and my sister-in-law while they were lying in their bed. Shot multiple times, including both shot in the head.
Now, that was emotional testimony, and when you hear that testimony, and you hear that the Brocks were both shot in the head, it does make you wonder about the 911 call that Sarah Grace Patrick made to authorities when dispatchers say the caller found the Brocks to be cold to the touch and not needing CPR, and that there were no signs of foul play, at least from what the caller could see. Now, it's important to note, we have not seen crime scene pictures. We have not seen body cam video from the scene. At that August hearing, the judge denied bond for Sarah Grace Patrick, and she has continued to be held in county jail. Hours after that hearing, a grand jury indicted her in this case. She is now charged with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault.
A man named Sean Hoover, who just took over the case after her previous public defender left the office entirely.
Aggravated assault. Initially, the judge set a trial date for January of 2026, but then that got moved to August 3rd. Both the prosecution and defense did appear ready for that date, but then came some big bombshells that appeared to be dropped today in this court hearing, with Sarah Grace Patrick's new attorney now asking for a continuance.
What I thought was just a chain of custody issue turned out to be a much larger issue dealing with GBI.
At a hearing this week, Hoover didn't just ask for more time to get his new team up to speed. He dropped a bombshell. He told the court that in just the last few days, brand new evidence had surfaced. Evidence he says nobody on the defense side knew existed until now. According to Hoover,
the sheriff's office, police department, and just evidence in general.
Sarah Grace Patrick's defense listed several reasons as to why her trial should be delayed once again. One of them being that they just need more time because they have an entirely new team on Patrick's case. But Hoover, the attorney, also says that there's new evidence that's been uncovered just in the last week. He says it has to do with an officer who responded to the scene on that day in February 2025.
But on Friday, when I met with the state to go over the physical evidence, they sent a supplemental report from an officer with local law enforcement. The issue is this officer is in other reports. This officer is on the witness list. But from the information we received, the information Ms. Williams had, this officer literally didn't really do anything in the reports. He was just there. Now we find out that
The officer tested the weapon and then simply handed it back. No documentation, no follow-up until now.
Find out that this officer did not write a report. However, he went to the DA's office literally last week and said, you know what? Well, and I'm sure they can correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding, this officer had a hunch that the gun that was possibly used for the shooting was pawned by a certain person we never knew the name of from the discovery sent over by the DA. And that officer's hunch turned into, it went to another person that had the gun, and the officer tested the gun and then gave it back to the other person. We had no idea these two people existed. We had no idea this test existed. We had no idea there was a possible another gun. We had no idea there was a possible hunch. We have no idea how the officer came to that conclusion.
It's important to note that this is the first time that we've really heard anything about an alleged murder weapon in this case. When we have asked law enforcement about whether they have the murder weapon, they wouldn't answer that question. And now you have the defense today saying that there was a gun, part of the investigation. They say one that was potentially used in the shooting that an officer thought may have been pawned, and that there are other people who potentially came in contact with that weapon that Patrick's previous defense team didn't know anything about. The defense is also alleging that prosecutors were unaware of this as well.
We are now in a position to where I honestly don't know, was this one rogue officer that just did literally whatever he wanted to and never reported to anyone else? Or is there more involved in this? I need to now follow up on the hunches. I need to now follow up on how he even got to this conclusion. I need to now follow up on the two people. Well, it is more than two people at this point that I didn't know about until Friday, literally Friday afternoon, that I need to now follow up on them. I need to go to the pawn shop to see what happened there. I mean, there's so much more information that we have uncovered since I've taken over the case and I brought my team on, that we can't fully be prepared to go forward